3. Types of radiation and their health effects. First of all, we'll go for the definitions. What is the meaning of different radiation? First, we have non-ionizing radiation. What is the meaning of non-ionizing radiation? Radiation that does not cause ionization in the material that absorb it. What will happen whenever the radiation will come into contact with any material? Some radiation will absorb it, and the other radiation, non-ionizing radiation, that will not absorb it. So non-ionizing radiation, whenever it will come into contact with the material, it will not absorb. After that, we have the ionizing radiation, the radiation that cause ionization in the material that absorb it. So whenever the ionizing radiation, it will come into contact with the material, it will absorb it. After that, we have the types of non-ionizing radiation. When you will go to the non-ionizing radiation, there are subtypes also. In the non-ionizing radiation, there are 5 different types of non-ionizing radiation. So the 5 types of non-ionizing radiation is ultraviolet, UV, visible light, infrared, microwaves, and radio waves. So what is UV? Ultraviolet rays are high frequency electromagnetic radiation light emitted by white hot material such as arc produced during arc welding. So during the welding process where we are doing the arc welding, and at that time also ultraviolet rays will be produced. It is a non-ionizing radiation also. The ultraviolet rays, as you know, that naturally we will get from the sun also. So this is the ultraviolet rays. After that, we have the visible light. Electromagnetic radiation between the UV and infrared frequencies and visible to the human eye. So what will happen whenever there is a non-ionizing radiation called the visible light? What will happen between UV and infrared frequencies, and it will be visible to our human eye also. After the third one, we have infrared, lower frequency electromagnetic radiation emitted red hot materials such as molten metal being poured into castings. It is infrared. Fourth one, we have microwaves. Microwaves are lower frequency electromagnetic radiation emitted by a microwave generator. Fifth one, we have radio waves, lower frequency electromagnetic radiation emitted by an antenna. Note that microwaves can be categorized as a subset of radio waves. So microwave, as you know, that we use to make our food hot. So how our food is getting hot? Because of the microwaves, the small waves passes through the equipment, and that thing come into contact with the food. That thing will make our food hot. So microwaves also, that is work in this process. After then we have the radio waves. Radio waves we use in a TV, antenna, and radio. So certain other areas we use the radio waves also in our day-to-day life. Types of radiation and their health effect. Health effects. The effects of exposure to non-ionizing radiation depend on the type of radiation in question. UV, this can cause redness and burns to the skin. If any person will come into contact with ultraviolet rays, it will cause the redness and the burns of the skin. You may have feel that whenever you will come into contact with the sun, it will give you the sunburn, and our skin will get red, and the color will change also. Pain and inflammation to the surface of the eye, leading to the temporary blindness, often called arc eye or snow blindness. So these are the things will happen whenever we will come into contact with the ultraviolet rays. After that, we have the visible light. This can cause temporary blindness if intense disability glare, and permanent eye damage and skin burns if very intense high power laser. If any visible light, any laser that will come into contact with our body, and these visible ultraviolet ray, these ionizing radiation rays are very high powered, so that can penetrate our skin also, and that can cause burn also if it is high power. But if it is in low power, it can give us temporary blindness if intense disability glare, and if it is high power, permanent eye damage and skin burns also can happen. And infrared, this can cause redness and burns to the skin and development of cataracts over time. Infrared, as you know that there are different types of infrared, class 1 to class 4. So as the class will increase for the infrared, class 1 is a very less power and class 4 is the highest power. Whenever any person will come into contact with class 1, there won't be any high damage. But whenever the person will come into contact with class 4, it will give you more damage and it can cause skin burns also. And if this infrared come into contact with our eyes, then it can cause cataracts also over time. Then we have the microwaves. These are absorbed and cause internal heating. Whenever it will come into our body, it will be absorbed and it will cause internal heating also. High dose cause internal organ damage and could be fatal. So whenever you are using the microwaves also, you need to be very, very careful. Always, nowadays what we are doing, each and every food we are heating in microwaves and sometimes we cook also. So excess use of microwaves also through the foods also that can cause any health effects also. So we need to be very, very careful whenever we are using the microwaves. After that, radio waves. These are absorbed and cause internal heating in the same way as microwaves. So these are the health effects from the non-ionizing radiation, which is UV, visible light, infrared, microwaves, and radio waves. So as I told you that lasers are classified into four different classes, class 1, 2, 3, and 4. So in these classes, a class 4 can cause instant skin and tissue burns and irreversible eye damage. So as you know that there are four classes in laser. So whenever you are choosing the laser, you need to be very, very careful. We know that there are different laser classes and when you are using the laser, we need to be very, very careful. So as I told you that there are four classes, class A, class 1 and class 1M, class 2, class 2M, 3R, 3B and till class 4. So these are the classes we have in the laser. So there are not four classes. These classes we have the different groups. In class 1, we have the class 1M, class 2, 2M, and 2 and 2M, and the class 3, 3R and 3B, and we have the class 4. As you know that class 4 is the highest energy, and that will cause skin burns also and cataracts also, permanently damage. Eye can damage also permanently. Types of radiation and their health effects. Typical occupational source of non-ionizing radiation. Non-ionizing radiation is present in our workplace and is used for various applications. So how the people and the workers they can come into contact with the non-ionizing radiation. Ultraviolet rays, you know that people they have to expose to the environment at that time they will come into direct sunlight and that can get the ultraviolet rays also. After that, arc welding. If the person they are involving with the welding task and especially they are doing the arc welding, so the chances of getting the ultraviolet rays it will be very high. So the people who's exposing these things need to be very, very careful and we need to make sure that there are proper control measures to avoid any risk with the ultraviolet rays. Red hot steel in a rolling mill and glass manufacturer. There, the people may come into contact with the infrared. Infrared also industries where people they use the thermometers also, infrared thermometers. That time also need to be very, very careful how to use the thermometers properly. So, to avoid any damage, skin burns, and any other thing, to avoid any damage to the body. Then we have the visible light, laser leveling devices, and laser pointers. Sometimes trainers they use the laser pointer also. You know that whenever we use the laser pointer, one rays that will come and that go to the point somewhere. So whenever we are using the laser pointer, laser leveling devices, we need to make sure that we are not pointing to someone bodies and if you are using the laser, you need to be very, very careful also. How you have to use it during the non-use, you need to keep it in a safe place for storage. And there are so many requirements that we need to follow regarding laser lights. Then we have the microwaves, industrial micro oven in a food factory and telecommunication equipment, example mobile phone antenna. So these are the microwaves used where the people they are using the microwaves in a food factory also. So that we need to take care. Radio waves, radio and radar antenna. So that time they may come in contact with the radio waves. Controlling exposure to non-ionizing radiation. How we can control exposure to non-ionizing radiation to the workers? For the ultraviolet rays, enclose the source, cover exposed skin, and protect the eyes. For example, a welder should shield their work area so that passers-by are not exposed to ultraviolet rays. And those ultraviolet rays can be used in the closed area. So these ultraviolet light will not go out. And the people they are exposing to the environment, hot sun, outside they are working, they need to wear the full sleeves and they can use the sun screen cream on the body also. So these are the different way we can use. For the infrared, enclose the source, cover exposed skin and protect the eyes. People can use the goggles also. For example, a metal worker should wear overalls, gauntlets, and a face visor, goggles or safety spectacles to protect the eyes. So these are the things can be used. Microwaves and radio waves. Since these types of radiation can be absorbed internally, the control of exposure is achieved by enclosing the source as far as possible. For example, a microwave oven is designed as a box to contain the microwave radiation and prevent its escape. So whenever we are using the microwaves for different purposes, we need to make sure that it should be used in a box shape. As you know that microwave that we are using in our home, it is in a box shape, so the microwaves will not come out. But risk also is there that if you will use so much frequently, every day using the microwaves for the food purpose, preparing the food, reheating the food. So that time also you need to be very careful. And maintaining a safe distance from the source of radiation generator or antenna, it is very crucial. And you need to make sure that if you are using the microwaves, you need to put the proper guidelines how to use, and especially the pregnant women, they should not use the microwaves during the pregnancy because that can cause miscarriage also. Then we have the lasers. The degree of protection will depend on class of laser. As you know that there are different classes. We have the class 1, 1M, 2, 2M, 3B, 3B, 3R, and 4. So you need to depend on which class of laser you are using. As per the class, you need to provide the protection. People eyes also, they need to, these laser should not point on the people eyes. And if you are using the laser pointer, you need to be very careful. And dark goggles, people they should wear whenever they are using the lasers also. Shielding to prevent escape of the beam and use of non-reflective surface. It will happen sometimes these lasers will come into contact with some surfaces and they will reflect. So any area wherever you are using lasers, you need to make sure that the surfaces, wall, and the floor that should be non-reflective. So the laser should not reflect. There are some rules and regulation regarding radiation, the control of artificial optical radiation at work, regulation 2010, the control of electromagnetic fields at work, regulation 2016. These are the regulations that is related to the radiation. If you need more information regarding the radiation, you can go through these regulations. That will be very helpful for you. Now, the types of ionizing radiation. We're done with the non-ionizing radiation. And as you know that non-ionizing radiation, we have the 5 types. Now we'll go for the ionizing radiation. There are 5 different types of ionizing radiation also. Same like non-ionizing radiation. So the ionizing radiations are alpha particles, beta, X-rays, gamma rays, and neutrons. For the alpha particles, these are emitted by radioactive material but cannot travel very far through air or thin materials such as paper or skin. They are not very penetrating, so they will not penetrate. Beta particles, these are emitted by radioactive materials and are more penetrating. Beta particles are more penetrating these compared to alpha. Then we have the X-rays, a ray of high energy electromagnetic radiation. It is a light emitted by an X-ray set generator. They are very penetrating. Gamma rays are a ray of very high energy of electromagnetic energy emitted by some radioactive substances and are very penetrating. Then we have the neutrons. These particles are emitted by certain types of radioactive material. and are very penetrating. So in these, if you will compare, alpha only is the very less risky. Apart from alpha, we have the beta, gamma, and X-rays and neutrons. These are very high risky. Health effects related to the ionizing radiation. Health effects, acute effects of exposure to high dose of ionizing radiation include sickness and diarrhea. Whenever people they come into contact with ionizing radiation, alpha, beta, gamma, neutron, and X-rays, they will get some kind of health effects like sickness and diarrhea. They will lose the hair also, anemia due to red blood cells damage, reduced immune systems due to white blood cells. These are the effects of radiation, ionizing radiation. All the cells of the bodies are affected by the radiation, but some more so than others. If the dose is large enough, then death will follow in weeks, days, or hours. So if you are exposing more in these ionizing radiation, and every day 8 hours, 9 hours, or more exposure you have, and you are exposing to high level of radiation, then death will follow in weeks, days, or hours. So we need to be very careful with these radiation. Chronic effects of exposure to ionizing radiation include cancer, genetic mutations, birth defects. So if you will see the acute effect is very less risky, and they can be treated and they can get cured within a month, within a weeks, within a days also. Chronic effects is very risky. People, they will not come to know until the last stage also. You know, the cancer, in the starting, people, they don't know. When they will reach to the last stage, then they will come to know that yes, there is a problem with the body, there is a cancer will come in. And doctors also can't do anything on that. These are the chronic effects. Chronic effects can arise following exposure to high or low dose of radiation. If you are getting the low dose or high dose, it depends on that also, that chronic effects will come up. There is no known safe level of exposure below which no chronic effects might occur. So until so far, there is no known level that till which level the person they can expose to avoid the chronic effects. Then we have the instead there is a clear relationship between dose and the risk of these chronic effects. Example, the larger the dose, the greater the risk. As we know that as larger the dose will be there and the risk will increase as per that the dose. The occupational sources of ionizing radiation, how the people they may come into contact with ionizing radiation. Ionizing radiation is present in a wide variety of workplaces and is used for various applications. Nuclear power stations, scientific laboratories, and hospitals are just three typical workplaces where various forms would be encountered. As you know that hospitals, X-rays are highly used. So the people who's working in the X-ray rooms in the hospitals, they need to be very careful, and the exposure should be limited also, as low as possible. Nuclear power stations also and scientific laboratories also where the people they are working. Typical occupational source include alpha particles, smoke detectors, and science labs. So if you have seen the smoke detectors, there are the alpha particles being used to detect the smoke. Then we have the beta particles, science labs, and thickness gauges. X-rays, medical radiography, and baggage security scanners. There we are using. And gamma rays, industrial radiography for non-destructive testing of metal and welds. So as you know that industrial radiography for non-destructive testing that we are doing, and we are using the gamma rays also for that purpose. Neutrons, nuclear power stations, there we are using the neutrons. So these are the different occupational where we are using these different ionizing radiations. Now, how we can control them? Protection from ionizing radiation can be achieved using three simple principles. So these three things we need to keep in mind. First thing is the time, second thing is the distance, third thing is the shielding. Time, as you know that as less is the exposure, that is the great thing. So the exposure should be limited and that should be as less as possible. Like noise and vibration, the dose of radiation received is directly proportional to the duration of exposure. Half the duration, half the dose. Second thing, distance. The greater the distance from the radiation sources, the exposed worker, the lower the dose of radiation received. As you know that whenever the distance will increase for the ionizing radiation, it effects will start to go down and it will not cause that much heavy risk. Alpha and beta particles cannot travel long distances through air. So whenever the distances will increase for the alpha and beta particles, so their effects will start to go down. So you need to increase the distance between the people and between the ionizing radiation. So a relatively small separation distance can have a significant effect. However, we have the shielding. The type required will be determined by the type of radiation. Relatively thin shields can be used to contain alpha and beta particles radiation. X-ray and gamma rays require thicker, denser, such as lead. So as per the ionizing radiation, you need to decide the shielding. If it is alpha and beta, you need the thin shield that is also work. But whenever you are using the X-rays and gamma rays, then you require the thicker shield. Okay. So as per the radiation, you need to take the action. Then we have the radon gas. The nature of radon and the health risk. Radon gas is a naturally occurring gas that seeps from the ground. So radon gas, it is coming naturally, like methane and other gases that coming from naturally. That is same like that. We have the radon gas. But radon gas, it is a different type of gas. High level of radon gas are found in certain parts of the world due to the geology in these areas. Example in the UK and the Derbyshire Peak district and in Devon. These areas containing higher natural radon gas. Radon is a radioactive gas. Okay, it is a radioactive gas also, same like radiation. So it is a radioactive gas. It emits ionizing radiation. So we can get the ionizing radiation from the radon gas also, and it is very, very dangerous. It is not a type of radiation. It is a source of radiation. So from this, we will get the radiation also. Specifically, radon gas emits alpha particles radiation. The health risk associated with radon gas exposure in an increased risk of lung cancer. So the people who ever is coming into contact with radiation gas, this radon gas, they have the higher risk of lung cancer. Outside and well ventilated workplaces, the radon's levels are unlikely to be high enough to cause concern. But in certain areas where radon levels are naturally high and in poor ventilated workplaces, especially basements and other subground level locations, radon levels can become high enough to represent a significant risk to health. If your work environment is open and it is not closed, so the radon gas that will not live there, that will spread. Wherever you have the basements, underground work areas, there radon gas may seep from the ground and that will accumulate also. In that area that has the higher risk of, uh, it can cause the higher risk to health to the employees who working in that and whoever is coming into contact with those radon gases. So you need to take care with the radon gas also wherever we have the underground spaces and that is enclosed. Typical occupational sources of radon gas. How the radon gas come from the occupational sources also. Workers who spend significant amounts of time in some ground spaces in areas where radon levels are recognized to be higher are at risk of radon exposure. Example would include workers in a basement office, miners, construction workers involved in tunneling. So whenever you are starting any work, you need to do the radon gas testing also. After that, you need to start the work in these areas, wherever you are doing these work. Control measure. What is the control measure for the radon gas? Controlling the risk presented by the radon gas involves the following. First of all, undertaking a survey of radon gas levels to determine if the levels are acceptable or required action. First of all, you need to check that whether the radon gas is available there or not. If it is available, in what level it is available there. If it is in a safe level, you can start the work, or if it is not in the safe level, you need to take some further action. So how the radon gas will come? Due to uranium and radium, radon will be come up and potentially health risk posed by the odorless gas. It is an odorless gas and it can cause health risk also. Where radon's levels are shown to be high, it will be necessary to reduce employee exposure. In the UK, the action level of radon gas is 400 BQ oblique meter cube. So that per cubic meter, they need to use it. Appointing a RPA to carry out a risk assessment. Engineering solutions to high radon levels can often be applied, such as installing positive pressure air fans to prevent the radon gas from seeping from the ground up into the workplace. Installing radon sumps and extraction system to draw radon out of the ground at low level before it can seep into buildings. So wherever you have the risk of radon gases, what you need to do, you have to use the engineering controls also. And before you are starting any work, you need to do some testing also to make sure that people who's coming into contact with the radon gas, they are not getting any high risk from this radon gas. Basic radiation protection strategies. How we can protect our employees from the ionizing radiation. When the type of radiation the worker potentially exposed is non-ionizing or ionizing, there are some basic protection strategies that apply in all cases. So whether your workers coming into contact with any type of radiation, whether ionizing or non-ionizing radiations, these are the simple strategies that we can apply and we can protect our employees also. First of all, radiation exposure should be eliminated so far as is reasonably practicable. So coming into contact with the radiation, if it is practical. Where complete elimination is not possible, then exposure should be reduced to the lowest level reasonably practicable. So reduce the time. Employee exposure must not exceed the relevant radiation dose limits. So you need to decide the dose limits also, and the person, we should not exceed that limit. Exposure must be risk assessed by a competent person. Before you are exposing your employee to the certain type of radiation, a competent person should do the risk assessment. What is the risk? It needs to be evaluated, and the control measure should be implemented. And after the control measure, if there is any residual risk, and those residual risk, whether you need some more control measures, that need to be decided also. Person should be trained, employees should be trained properly, whoever is coming into contact with the radiation before they start their work. Training and information must be given to the potentially affected employees. As I said, health surveillance may be necessary for exposed employees. So time by time, what you have to do, you have to do the health surveillance also to make sure that your employees are safe. Though the technical detail in the legislation varies, the basic principles outlined above are relevant to both ionizing radiation. Example in GB, Great Britain, the ionizing radiation regulation 2017, and non-ionizing radiation, it is control of artificial optical radiation at work regulation 2010, and control of electromagnetic fields at work regulation 2016. So these are the regulation which is used by the Great Britain in the UK. You can go through these article regulations and you may get some more information also regarding the radiation. Monitoring health surveillance. So what is the role of health surveillance? How it can help to us? Workers who are exposed to radiation are at risk of health effects arising from exposure. So it is necessary to carry out monitoring of the radiation dose and health surveillance. So it is required. Circumstances required in health surveillance may include, so when you should conduct a health surveillance. So before working as a classified worker, someone who is exposed to radiation over a specified national limit. So before working as a classified worker, radiation worker, you need to do the health surveillance to make sure that that person should not have pre-existing health related issues related to the radiation. During periodic health reviews, annually or semi-annually, biannually, that you can do. Special surveillance if a dose limit has been exceeded after ceasing work as a classified worker. Special consideration may also be required for classified workers who are pregnant or breastfeeding. And whenever any worker, pregnant or breastfeeding, they are coming into contact with ionizing radiation or non-ionizing radiation, you need to do the health surveillance first, then you need to take the action on that. In the health surveillance, the following types of examination may be carried out. When we are conducting the health surveillance, these are the steps you need to take as skin checks. You can do the skin checks. Why we need to do the skin checks? To identify lesions which could allow radioactive materials to enter the body. Respiratory checks to ensure that workers who may be required to wear respiratory protection are fit and able to do so. Reference to exposure records, check if the employee's records to determine if those limits have been exceeded or not. Reference to sickness records, examination of the employee's general health and absence history. That's also need to be checked before you are allowing your employees to work in radiation areas. The common types of mental ill health. Excuse me. Anxiety, a feeling of unease such as worry or fear that can be mild or severe. Anxiety can have both psychological and physical symptoms. Psychological symptoms can include feeling worried or uneasy a lot of the time, having difficulty sleeping, inability to concentrate, irritability, being extra alert, feeling on edge, or not being able to relax. These are the psychological symptoms of anxiety. After that, physical symptoms of anxiety. Heartbeat, heartbeat will increase, breathing faster, that way person will breathe, and after that irregular heartbeat, heartbeat will stop after that. So heartbeat will not be regular. Nausea, chest pain, headaches, and loss of appetite. Person will not feel hungry. After that, long-term anxiety can lead to serious ill health conditions such as hypertension, chronic high blood pressure. Anxiety is sometimes linked to panic disorder, having panic attacks, and post-traumatic stress disorders, PTSD, caused by exposure to a traumatic event. It is also sometimes linked to depression. So this is the mental ill health we are talking about, anxiety. And anxiety that has the psychological symptoms also and physical effects also. So if your employees they are facing the mental ill health and their health is not proper, you need to check for these things also, and you need to consult with them also. After that, depression. What is a depression? Depression is a feeling of extreme sadness, despair, and inadequacy that lasts for a long time. The severity of the symptoms of depression can vary. At its mildest, depression involves being resistantly low in spirit, low mood. They will be in a lower mood. They are not energetic in a mild symptoms. At its most severe, depression makes sufferers feel suicidal and that life is no longer worth living. Whenever a person may come into the higher pressure for the depression, higher level in depression, they will feel to suicide. They think that there is nothing for them in the life, in the world, so they don't want to live in this world. So they will go to the suicide stage. Symptoms of depression can include the following: continuous low mood, they will be lower energetic, feelings of hopelessness and helplessness, low self-esteem, guilt, irritability and intolerance, lacking motivation or interest, difficulty with decision making, they can't make the decision quickly, suicidal thoughts, always they may thought about the suicides and they think about that. Thoughts of self-harm, they anytime or anywhere they can harm themselves. At the most severe end of the scale, depression may lead to a diagnosis of clinical depression that can be categorized as mild, moderate, or severe. So that is this is a depression and the symptoms of depression. After that, we have the work-related stress. What is a stress? Adverse reaction that people have to excessive pressure or other demands placed on them. Whenever we place excessive demands on the people, they feel pressure themselves. So that is a stress. The stress is not a disease, but a natural reaction to pressure. Whenever you will put some pressure to the people, they will react and that they will put into the stress situation. They will feel stress. So the pressure is an inherent part of work, whether it is a deadline that must not be missed or a rate of output that must be maintained. So the deadline, suppose you are giving deadline some of the person that within 1 day you have to finish that task. So that is the deadline. So what you are doing now, you are giving the pressure to someone. So the person will think that now I have to do this in 1 day. I have to finish in there. So the person will start to take the stress. After then, you are saying that some of the person that they need to continue work at the same speed. Okay, that output should not be missed. Rate of output. So that need to be maintained also. So that is a stress. Pressure does not necessarily lead to stress because in many circumstances people are able to cope with the pressure they are under. There are people, different people. Some of the people they can take the stress, and some of the people they can't take only a very little stress. Also, some people they can take the more stress also. They can handle. So it is depend on the people also how much pressure they can handle. In fact, in many situations, pressure results in a positive performance. As you know that some of the people you need to pressurize them, then they will give their best. And some of the people, if you will pressurize them, they will demotivate it, their work performance will go down also, and certain other bad thing will come up. So it's depend on the person to person. Athletes tend to produce their very best performance under the pressure of competition, not in training. Causes of work related mental health. What are the causes of mental ill health? Why the people they go into depression, they feel stress and anxiety and certain other mental ill health? First of all, the demands, excessive demands on the job in terms of workload, too much or too little. So whenever you are giving some demands to the workers and that demands are not achievable, then they will feel under pressure and mental ill health will start to come up. Working hours and changing shift patterns also. So these are also the causes of work-related mental ill health. After that, control. Lack of control over work, especially where the work is demanding. Control means control over what work is to be done, how it is to be done, the priorities involved, and even simple things like control over the working environment, light levels, temperature, background noise, and these are the other things that the person cannot control. So these are the things also can cause mental ill health to the people. The third one we have support, lack of support in terms of information, instruction, and training to do the work, and having no one to turn to when pressure increase. So whenever we don't provide the support to the worker, maybe the worker work is increasing, and before the person was doing the same amount of job alone, now the work is increased, and even though worker doing that same amount of work alone, so their person don't have any information, instruction, and training, and you are asking the person to do it. So person is lacking of support, and there is no one to support him during any pressure or any high demanding task. So that thing also can cause mental ill health. After that, we have the fourth number. We have relationships. How we are maintaining the relationship between the colleagues, workplace relationship, in particular bullying and harassments, whether by managers, peers, or even subordinates. So these things will cause mental ill health also. So relationship should be healthy in the workplace, and these things also need to be taken care and should be observed by the manager, and there should be the proper process to deal with these physical harassments, bullying, and other types of relationship in worker area. Role. Lack of clarity about an individual's roles, what responsibilities and authority they have, and how they fit into the larger organizational structure. Whenever you are asking some of the person to do that job and he know that that is not his responsibility and you are asking that person, so what will happen, that person will think too much, it is not my job, why I have to do that. The person not aware about his roles and responsibilities, you didn't inform them personally that that is their role and that they need to do. So the person should be informed properly about their roles and responsibilities. So they should be clear about their things, what they have to do. So that thing will reduce the mental ill health also. After then change, the threat of change and the change process itself, whether it is a change that affects just one worker, example, demotion or reassignment, or the whole organization, example, redundancies, management takeover, this can create huge anxiety and insecurity. I hope you remember during the COVID, when the COVID started in 2020, so many people, they lost their job. They don't know that what will happen next. So these things, uncertainty, changes will cause the anxiety and insecurity to the people, and it will create the mental ill health. People, they are losing the job. They don't know that next what will happen. Maybe they will lose their job. Maybe something bad will happen with them. Demotion, reassignment, and redundancies will come up, and the management, new management, wherever the new management will take over, they will start to remove the worker also, previous worker also. So these things will create the mental ill health. So these are the causes of mental ill health. Work interfere. Stress can also be caused by various external factors that put additional pressure on the individual, such as excessive commute times, distance, childcare issues, work relocation, etc. When we are working, we have to cooperate with the home and work. In home, there are so many things that we have to take care. We have to take care about child. We have to travel distance, cover the distance from the home to work, and the time we have to spend during our travel from home to work. So all these things also cause mental ill health also. Because the people, they have to think. Sometimes they have to drive very fast because they have to cover the distance also. And they will think that I have to cover the distance, I have to reach on that time, I don't have to miss the deadlines. So all these things will come up on the mind. And at that time, because of the mental ill health, their mind will not work properly. They may come into contact with the accidents also, and they do the accidents, and other serious injuries can occur. After that, staying in work. Many studies have shown that meaningful work has a positive effect on mental health. Work gives people a purpose, provides mental stimulation and physical activity. It puts people into a social network. Simply put, work is good for you. So the people, they go to the work, they will be busy. They will not think about certain other things. So their mental health also will be very good. But if you don't have the job, you have to sit in the home and continuously you are looking for the job. So people, their mental health also will be affected also. So staying in work and being busy with the work, that is a good thing also. It must also be recognized that prolonged absence from work can have a negative impact on a person's mental health. Individuals who are off work for long periods of time can become less active, fail to maintain social contacts, and become socially isolated. They may suffer a loss of self confidence and have low self esteem. If there is no reason that worker need to absent from the work for the long term, then that is okay. But if there is a reason that person met with the accident and due to some medical issues need to be absent from the work for the long term, and after the long periods that the person need to come back to the work. So before they come back to the work, what we need to do, we need to discuss with the employees, colleagues that these are the conditions, these are the things. The person coming from work, he going to rejoin the work, and how to behave with him, and what are the things we need to do to make sure that person will not get affected, and how to cooperate with the person. So all these things can be very effective. These effects can lead to poor mental health and conditions such as anxiety and depression. So all these things will cause anxiety and depression, which is very highly risky to the worker. Now, control measures, how we can control these things. First of all, demands. These demands are speed of work, deadlines should be reasonable. So it should not be happen that demands which you are putting on the work that are unrealistic. The demand should be realistic and that should be achievable. And working hours should be determined also, that workers should not be pressured to work more than uh, uh, to work after the working hours also, and the workers should not be uh, disturbed during the non-working hours, during the holidays also, during the weekends also. So all these things need to be checked properly and should be in place to maintain the distance between the working hours and non-working hours. After then, we have the controls. Workers should be given as much control of their work as possible, especially where the work is demanding. They should be encouraged to take control over what and how work is to be done. They should decide that at least some kind of responsibilities and accountability they should be given, so they can take the decision and they can do the job in their way. The working environment where possible. Then the support. Workers should be provided with adequate information, training, and supervision. They need to be provided, and additional support need to be provided wherever they're feeling they are under pressure and they can't do that job alone. Extra manpower should be provided. The relationship. A clear policy should exist concerning acceptable standards of behavior, workplace. Bullying and harassment should not be tolerated. Zero tolerance policies should be implemented in the workplace. The role and responsibilities of the workers should be clearly defined, and roles and responsibilities of the workers should be clearly communicated, and they should sign their roles and responsibilities and need to make sure that they understood their roles and responsibilities. After that, we have the change. There should be careful planning and preparation for the change process. The reasons for change should be clearly explained to the worker. Why we are doing these changes? What is the reason? How we need to make sure that we need to inform that workers should not be worried that because of these changes, these nothing gonna harm them, and what are the action you are taking to deal with these changes also. So all these things you have to inform to the worker also to avoid any disturbance, any anxiety, any depression. It is better to implement change quickly to minimize the impact of uncertainty. So the changes, if you want to do some changes, that should be done in a quick. It should not be happen for the long time. And if you will take it for the long time, what will happen? It will increase the chances of anxiety and depression also. Many employers provide a confidential counseling service of employees, which can be provided in-house by trained employees or outsourced. This service can be useful to employees in dealing with both work-related and non-work-related matters. So counseling is very, very important, and the workers should be trained about the counseling also, how the counseling can help them, and what are the issues they can discuss during the counseling also. And we need to make sure that we are giving the confidence to the worker that none of the matter will go outside and everything will be confidential. Risk factors and controls. What is work-related violence? Work-related violence, any incident in which a person is abused, threatened, or physically assaulted in circumstances relating to their work. That's called work-related violence. Risk factor for violence, certain occupations and types of work are associated with an increased risk of violence. The following factors are common to those occupations: cash handling. Any work that involves the handling of quantities of cash or valuable puts workers at risk of violence associated with robbery. So, if you are working in any industry where you are handling the cash, whether you are handling the small cash or big cash, you need to be very, very careful. And the risk should be identified and assessed also. So, people who's working alone, loan blocking, any loan blocking that takes the worker into urban areas or puts them into contact with members of the public at remote or private locations. Example, securities. Securities, they are working alone at night shift also. They need to work in a different far from the cities and the remote areas also. So they are the lone worker also, and they are at the greater risk of this work-related violence. Representing authority. Any work where the worker represents authorities such as police, traffic, wardens, etc. So when the people such as police and traffic wardens, they are controlling the people, they are controlling the crowd, that time also they are at the risk of work-related violence. The following factors are common to those occupations: wearing a uniform. Uniforms are often seen as a symbol of authority, and therefore those wearing them may be signaled out for abuse by those wishing to challenge that authority. So why these physical assault or work-related violence will come up? First of all, the people, they are wearing the uniform. Whenever the people, they will see the person in uniform, they will the person, first of all, the person who's wearing the uniform, he or she, they will think about the authority, and they have the authority also, and they will work in that level. After then, the person who is in front, that will try to challenge the authority. So in that thing, that will come up, and the people will face the physical violence. Dealing with people under stress. When people are under stress, they are more likely to lose control of their emotions. When the people are under stress, they don't know that what they are doing, and whoever is coming into contact with those people who are under stress, they will face the work-related violence. Dealing with people under the influence. When you have to deal with the people who are under influence, like drugs, alcohol, or with the mental health problems, with normal inhibitions on behavior have been affected, then the person who is dealing with them, they are under risk of work-related violence. Censoring or saying no. Whenever you say no to anyone, you are hurting their feelings. Like bar staff, penalties, fines, or who have to refuse a service to say no, then there are high chances that people have to face the work-related violence. Control measures. Occupation at risk of violence involves one or more of these risk factors, such as hospital accidents and emergency staff. So these are the occupations. They are at the higher risk of work-related violence. Hospital staff and emergency staff, police, social workers, bus and taxi drivers, firefighters and paramedics, traffic wardens, railway staff, teachers. Control measure for violence. How we can control the violence? The first step in managing the risk of work-related violence is to find out the exact nature of the problem. Whenever you are doing any control for the work-related violence, first of all, you have to identify the what is the risk. As you know that there are different occupations. As per the occupation, there is a different risk. If you are handling the cash, there is a robbery risk. The people can face the robbery risk and they have to face the work-related violence. And the risk is very high. So as per that, you have to identify the risk as per your working environment and the task you are doing. So evidence may suggest a problem. After that, but its scale and nature may not be clear. The extent of the problem can be investigated by collecting and analyzing incident reports. What you can do, you can collect the past incident reports. Those will be very helpful. You can interview the staff also, and you can do the staff surveys also. And you can check the process also, how the process is going on, how the process is running. And wherever the risk is involved, that risk you can identify during the risk assessment. It will then be possible to identify and implement the correct preventive measures, which will be different depending on the nature of the workplace and of the work. In general, two distinct strategies can be adopted. Preventing violence at a central office can be achieved if you are working in a central office, and how you can avoid the violence. First of all, zero tolerance policy and prosecution of offenders. That policy should be implemented. Security staff, you can appoint. CCTV cameras, surveillance cameras should be installed, so the people they can see the CCTV cameras also, and they can control themselves also. Security doors between public areas and staff areas. If you are handling the public, then the staff who's entering in the staff areas, there should be a security door. So anyone non-staff, they should not enter in that areas. Minimizing the queues and waiting times. So where the people they have to wait for the long time, they will start to get frustrated and physical violence will start. So that thing should be avoided. So minimizing the queues and waiting times should be reduced. Clear announcement about waiting times, how much time they need to wait. It should be clearly communicated. Training for staff, such as providing a good quality service, diffusing aggression, how to deal with the aggression, how to deal with the guests, how to deal with the customers, how to deal with the public if they are in aggression, if they are try to harm the staff. So these training need to be provided to the staff. The screens between the staff and public, if you are handling the cash or if you are dealing the customer, so there should be some gap between the staff and customer to maintain the gap. Panic alarms, if the staff they are panic, they can alarm the securities also, so they can get any type of alarm system with them. And pleasant environment, the environment should be pleasant also. Preventing violence to workers, conducting home visits can be achieved if any workers they need to do the home visit, like medical staff or other staff, they need to do the home visit. No lone working or no lone working in certain high risk areas. First of all, you need to identify the areas, what type of areas the people they're going to visit. Before they visit, they need to inform their colleagues that they need to do the log. The log should be there, and they should fill the information where they are going, what time they are going, what time they will reach, what time they will come, what is the work, and with whom they are going. So all this information should be there. So if there is any emergency, that information can be reviewed. After then, they should not allow to go alone. Lone walking should not be allowed. Second thing, keeping records of past incidents. If there is an incident, the visit should be suspended, and visit should not be allowed at the night time. Visit should be allowed at daytime. And when they are going in that area, parking should be easy to exit. It should not be happen that when they have to come out, it will be very difficult to take the car out or the vehicle out. So when they have to go out, so easy exit should be there. Preventing violence to workers conducting home visits can be achieved. No lone walking, keeping records of past incidents, waiting customers, visit, logging with supervisor, pre and post visit telephone calls. So before you are visiting, you can do the phone calls, or after visit, you can do the phone calls. Training for staff such as lawn walking procedures, how to deal with the lawn walking hazards and risks. Always having a means of communication, mobile phones, GPS tracking devices on personal, no visits after dark, parking in secure areas, no carrying cash or valuables. Because when you are carrying cash or valuables like costly phones, laptops, or any jewelry, people they will try to attack you and they will try to rob you. So that there are several types of substances that may be abused at work. Notable examples include alcohol, legal or illegal drugs. So legal drugs can be over the counter prescribed by the doctors. Illegal drugs are uncontrolled drugs like cannabis, heroin, cocaine may be taken by people both in the workplace and away from it. In all cases, use of such drugs can have detrimental effects on a person, not only leading to higher risk of driving vehicles or operating machinery, but also on their personality also. So they can't think properly, they can't take the quick decisions, their attitudes will change, and they will be more aggressive. So they will put not only themselves at risk, they will put the other colleagues and the people surrounded them. They will put them also at higher risk. After then, we have the solvents. Sometimes hazardous substances such as cleaning solvents are deliberately abused. These substances can be highly addictive, have serious effects on a person's performance, and will damage their health. Sometimes the solvents that we are using also that will also give some effects on our body, and their health will be affected also. So the solvents also can be categorized as a substance abused at work. Next to health and safety from substance abuse at work. What is the risk? So the risk is late attendance. If the people are taking the alcohol, they will not wake up early in the morning and they will get delay at work. That time they need to drive fast also. That can lead to accidents also. Increase absenteeism. They will not feel well and they will not come to work and they will do the absenteeism. Reduction in quality of work. The quality of work they are doing that will reduce also. Reduction in work rate. You can't work fast. Your work rate will go down also. Dishonesty. They will start to lie because they are addicted to the drugs. Theft, potentially to fund a habit. So they will start to theft because they are not getting the money and certain other things. They don't have to buy these drugs. Irritability and mood swings. Their mood will change also. Irritability and deterioration in working relationship. The work relationship also will go down with the other colleagues and people. How we can control the substance abuse at work? The employer might collect information about the state of the problem in the workplace. Company history may show a clear pattern of drugs and alcohol abuse. The employer should establish a clear drug and alcohol policy. First of all, you need to check the history, past incident, accident history. And if you find that there is a substance abuse history is there, then you need to work on that and you need to implement a clear policy about a substance abuse and drug and alcohol policy. And that policy should be properly trained to the employees and what is the substance abuse at work, how they have to avoid it, what is the risk involved with that, and what control measures are implemented and what they have to do, what is their roles and responsibilities towards substance abuse at work policy. The policy might contain rules restricting access to alcohol in the workplace or during working hours, Statutory legal requirements prohibiting workers from being under the influence of drugs and alcohol. Non-statutory requirements, arrangements for any random drugs and alcohol testing that worker will be subject to. In some cases, when you are doing this testing, there will be a legal requirement on the employer to carry out random drugs and alcohol testing. Arrangements for workers to have access to rehabilitation and treatment programs if they admit to having a problem. Disciplinary procedure for workers who have refused assistance, refused to be tested, or who fail a test. Provision of information, instruction, training, and supervision, and managers. So these are the things you can include in your drugs and alcohol policy when you are implementing a policy. Before that one, these are the things at least should be there in your policy. And alcohol awareness campaign should also be considered also when you are doing any campaign, when you are conducting any campaigns, that time also you can include this one, drug and alcohol awareness campaigns. That will be very beneficial for you to create the awareness between among the peoples. So among the workers, when you will create this awareness, they will get idea that what is the risk, what is the hazards, and what is the action they need to take, and what are the uh, help is there providing by the company. So these are the things you can do. So that's all from my side. I hope you like this training and the information